Passive income. It's the entrepreneurial mantra we've heard time and time again. But for the vast majority of us with limited resources, is this dream attainable or just pure fantasy? Today's guest is here to reveal the shocking truth. Not only is passive income obtainable for anyone and everyone, but unlocking it requires far less than you think. And he's here to show you exactly how it's done. This is Ryan Atkinson, and you're listening to the UpFlip podcast, where we uncover the secrets of building and running successful businesses. Today, I am ecstatic for this episode. We are here with Michael Hoffmann, the entrepreneur and wealth expert who went from making $2 an hour as a college strength training coach to starting a vending machine business that generates over $75,000 a month in passive income. He's helped thousands unlock financial freedom, and he's here to do the same for you. Michael, thank you so much for being here. I am so excited for this episode.
Ryan, fired up to be here and excited to dive into some of this.
Yes, and let's give the audience a little bit of background on who you are. Can you share us that background of who you are and how you transitioned from being a college coach to pursuing passive income? And was that a hard transition to make?
Yeah, so, a background for me was I started as a classic farm boy in Iowa that had two parents that were entrepreneur spirit, and I had a lemonade stand growing up. And so I had that kind of entrepreneur component. And then I went to college and really got down this path of human performance and coaching. So I got into that with collegiate football and athletics. And I kind of had an aha moment when I was coaching back in the Midwest when, especially in the fall, there's no days off and you're playing on Saturdays, you're back in the office on Sundays, and it just starts to wear down and you start to think about what are other ways to make money that don't require my time? And that's when I kind of went down this path of looking at passive income streams to really build some wealth without requiring as much time as my day job at the time.
So you went down this path of passive income. What were some of those first passive income ideas that you had way back when?
Yeah. So when I was a young coach, I didn't know a whole lot, but I did. One of my mentors in the coaching business actually got me onto trying to find these long-term rentals in the Midwest that, you buy for $70K and you rent out for $1,000 and you're well over the 1% rule. So no matter what mortgage rates are or anything, you're going to come out ahead. And so I literally took my emergency fund that I had built up from coaching and bought my first rental. And it became kind of addicting. Like I was making, $400 or $500 off of tenants. And I had hired a management company that I literally said, if it's not more than $500, fix it and don't even tell me about it, because I want it to be as passive as possible, and parlayed that into a second property and then 1031 that into a short-term rental and just kind of went down the path from there.
Interesting. And you said the emergency fund aspect. I want to ask, how much did you take out of the emergency fund to fund that first part of real estate?
Yeah. So the first rental was $70,000. So 20% down was, $14K. So it was, when you're making, I think at the time I was making $1,200 a month as a coach. So it was, it's not like I could just make up for it in a couple months.
Yeah. Were you scared to put all that money down? Because you're making $1,200 a month and that's not a whole lot of money here that we're playing with. I mean, were you scared?
Absolutely. And that's kind of the entrepreneurial DNA is you run towards what makes you uncomfortable. And looking back on it, I was probably scared as heck. And it was one of the best decisions of my life.
Absolutely. It's kind of like the army. We run towards the sound of chaos, as we like to say.
Exactly.
And I want to ask then, so you're in real estate, you're doing some long-term rentals, 70K house, doing all this stuff. How did that kind of lead you to explore vending machines of all things? It seems like two very different things there. So how did you fall upon vending machines?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, Ryan, was I couldn't keep coming up with the down payments for more rentals. And you're kind of capped out at what the market rates are for rent and what you have locked in through. There's not a lot of growth potential there with that asset you already got. So for me, I transitioned from coaching to working for a tech startup that required a lot of travel. And I'd be in these airports and I would see these old school vending machines that, one, I knew people were making 10x off of me because that bottle of water that I bought, I knew was 10 cents at Costco and I'm paying $4 for it. And then two, there was no one selling me that. It was a machine. So that person's time that was running that machine was literally limited. So I was just fascinated by that whole concept. And I just kind of went down this rabbit hole of vending. And that's when I really learned actually Warren Buffett's first investment as a teenager when he was 17 was a pinball machine route and that he had built. And, it's at the end of the day, it's all unattended retail.
I think that it's really interesting. You're thinking about it in a very entrepreneurial way, honestly, where it's like, well, I know it's going to cost them like 10 cents to this water bottle. They're going to charge me $4. They don't have anyone selling it. So I think that speaks to like your entrepreneurial mindset of like starting to figure this out even when you're not in the industry yet.
Yeah. And then you think about the friction, right? Like think about you go to the grocery store and you don't want to have to wait in line to check out. You naturally just go over to the self-checkout kiosk. And that's where like the future of all of this is going now. You go, like I literally just landed in Denver last week. I went up to this micro market in the terminal, didn't talk to a person, grabbed all my items. There's AI cameras above me, checked out, got my stuff, and walked out without waiting in line, without the whole 9 yards of dealing with a customer service rep that was mad and hated their life or any of those kind of friction points.
I'm also someone that will go to self-checkout, like if I can, just because like I just want to do it. I get to bag all everything, get myself there. So, but what time frame was this? Because this isn't before like people are really thinking about self-checkout. This is 2014, 2015.
Yeah, it was right before COVID. So it was more around like 2018 time. So yeah, it was probably 6-7 years ago, kind of exploring this a little bit.
Let's go to that time then. So it's around this time frame, you're starting to realize, okay, this vending machine thing might have some traction behind it. How did you start to take that first step to actually investing in vending machines?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. It was a classic thinking about how would you make money with a vending machine? It all starts with foot traffic. And so I actually, living in a college town, I went to a college dorm right next to campus, and I walked in and was like, hey, do you guys have vending machines? Do your residents have to walk across the highway at 10 p.m. and deal with kind of things that happen at night trouble wise, or do you actually provide this amenity to your residents? And they were like, no, we don't have this. We'd be interested in what you have to offer. Send us a proposal. And this is pre-Chat GPT. Yeah. So it was just door knocking, literally. And I Googled vending machines online, and there was only one company that wasn't from Alibaba or China, and it was a company out of Iowa. And it was amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, they have no money down. Your first payment isn't due for 90 days after the machine's delivered. So you have 90 days of sales. And,
Wow.
and they had a ton of YouTube videos on how to get the machine through a doorway, how to set the prices, like how to turn it on. So I was like, all right. And then being from Iowa like you, I was like, I trust these guys. So
Yeah,
right away, I got the first machine and self-taught myself.
that's really interesting. I love that they had like the blueprint essentially of like, this is exactly how to do it and how to price your products. I am curious. So finding your first vending machine, it sounds like, so you're able to put it in the dorm. What was that time frame like? You sent the proposal. What did you include in this proposal? You're not ChatGPT. What did you include in the proposal? And what was the time frame from actually getting set up? Just so people have this in the back of their mind as they're listening.
Yeah, so I think the first thing with regards to kind of that starting your business is you got to find the right locations that have foot traffic. So that was the first thing with this apartment complex. And then, a typical machine takes 4 to 8 weeks for delivery. And so you kind of use that timeline to your advantage with getting the proposal signed. And then in this case, this proposal, they didn't want any revenue share. In fact, they asked if I would donate a percentage to a nonprofit so they could put a sign up next to the machine and said a portion of your proceeds would go to X nonprofit. So I was like, absolutely, I'll totally do that. And it was 2%, so it was very minimal. And it was just kind of growing from there. The classic commercial real estate type expansion where they have 3 other properties they manage in town, and you do a good job with the first one, and we were fortunate to get the others right after that.
I love that. What were some of like those upfront costs? Because I really want to speak to the audience here that they want to be entrepreneurs. They want to get in this business as well. What type of money should they be thinking about setting aside to actually get this business started?
Yeah. So if you think of like vending and the minimal capital relative to real estate, most machine manufacturers are in, whether that's micro markets, kind of the more frontier forward machine type thing setups, or the old school machines. Most all manufacturers are similar to car dealerships. So they'll do like, Ryan, do you want to do pay in cash or do you want to finance? And then you say, oh, maybe I want to finance and save some capital. So 95% of companies will do no money down, or, at max 10% down on let's say a 6K machine. You're looking at $600. Or if you're like me in that first example I used, that had no money down. And then they had a financing plan of 60 months. So my monthly payment was $117. And it wasn't, my first month's payment wasn't due until 90 days after the machine was delivered. So I had done 90 days of sales before my first $117 payment. And then As far as like stocking that machine, usually budget for around $500. And then they'll also put a credit card reader on the machine for you and wrap that into the financing cost of the machine. So you're looking at, let's just be conservative. The product to put in the machine the first time is $500, and then maybe $100 for other ancillary things like insurance, whatever else you think of you need to get started.
That is really interesting. And are you paying a fee to these locations that you're actually placing? I'm sure it like varies, but I know the apartments one, they didn't pay anything, but do some have like where you need to pay a fee to actually have your vending machine there?
Some do, but most don't. That's kind of a common like, oh, you need to. So we actually have the other side of that. We have two businesses that will pay us because they don't want their workers to go to the 7-Eleven, or we work for a roofing company that literally will pay us every month for 50% of all the products sold in our micro market. And what we do is we set the prices half off. So if it's like let's say a $2 water, we set it to $1, and then every water we sell for $1, we invoice the company. So at the end of the month, if we do $1,000 in sales, we invoice the company for the other $1,000. But he wants his employees to get cheaper products. Than he literally calculated all the costs of time going to the store, gas using the work trucks to go to the store, all the store prices to justify putting this into his budget. So you think of like, oh, you're going to rent this space. But I think I don't even know how many locations we're up to now, but we probably pay a revenue share for 1/4 of them, 25%.
That is a super interesting business model. I really, really like this. And I love how like low those upfront costs are. You're basically looking at the $500, that $100 or so. I want to go back a little bit here. Identifying high traffic locations. What are some try and true high traffic locations that are easier to get and find than others?
Yeah, so there's kind of two trains of thought there, and both of them revolve around one thing, and that's a full parking lot. So you think of one train of thought for high foot traffic is going to be high employees. So, anywhere that has a lot of employees that has a full parking lot is kind of where you can target. And then the other side of it is anywhere with literally high unit count. So whether that's apartment complexes, whether that's condos, what have you, anything that's going to have high unit count. And at the end of the day, you're just trying to quantify foot traffic. And when you think of unit count, don't just think of an apartment complex. Like think of that medical building where you go see a doctor and you walk in and like there's the CPA office on the first floor and the dentist on the second floor. And that parking lot's always jam-packed and everyone has to funnel through that lobby. Like that kind of place is where you want to be.
Do you want to build a vending machine business of your very own? The very first step to unlocking passive income like never before is easier than you can imagine. And at the UpFlip Academy, we're here to prove that. Everyone, I am in the UpFlip Academy and I'm your community manager there. And I can promise you the programs that we have in here are amazing. We have detailed step-by-step guidance from successful entrepreneurs who've been in your shoes. You guys will be able to learn how to get started, attract your first customers, and set up your vending machine operation to grow. These are all proven strategies from active business owners and experts like Adam Hill, whose vending machine strategies help him bring in over $58,000 a month. Yes, $58,000 a month. If you're ready to learn, then the UpFlip Academy has the tools to help you succeed. Click the link in the description below and gain free access today. Everyone, I will see you in the UpFlip Academy. One question that comes to mind for me is, let's just use like the high unit. Some of them already might have a vending machine. So are they only having one vending machine or only using one supplier for their units, whatever, or there's room for two suppliers, two vending machines in one location?
Yeah, it depends on how niche you want to go. There might already be the old school machines in there. And now, the baby boomer generation is in there and they have the old school Coke and Pepsi machines. Yeah. So you might come in and pitch them on these new micro market concepts with salads and subs and factor meals and crumble cookies in your kind of smart machine. So you can displace those people. But then you also got the other side of where you're at in Austin. Farmer's Fridge has a really big footprint. That's a very niche vending machine that you see in like the Austin airport. But, you're dealing with literally only salads and shelf lives in 7 days. So you better sell a lot of them or you're going to have a lot of spoilage.
That is super interesting. Yeah, when you said the Farmer's Fridge, I was thinking of that exact location in the Austin airport that you were mentioning right there. I want to ask then from that. So you talked about two different products there, your Coca-Colas that you're selling and like your Farmer's Fridge, much two very different markets that you're selling to. Are you primarily focused on one more than the other, or how are you kind of deciding which products go where?
Yeah, it's all about what the clientele is, and that's where understanding, again, putting yourself in their shoes. So if we're going into a YMCA or a gym, you might do healthy only protein shakes. You might do like protein chips and protein bars, but you're not going to put Snickers and Twixes in there or Diet Cokes. It's going to be a lot of like Celsius Alani and then protein shakes, muscle milk, etc. And then the other side of it is you think of places in like downtown Austin that might be a commercial office building that had a Walgreens or a CVS, and then Walgreens or CVS pulled their retail space out during COVID. And now they have a bunch of office tenants, even at 50% occupied. They might have 1,200 people in that building that were used to getting incidentals from Walgreens or CVS. So they might want a lot of your over-the-counter, meds like Tylenol and Advil and all your hangover type stuff and kind of that, like we call them incidentals, makeup wipes. And we have a property that's half Airbnb rentals, half apartment complex, and we have an entire shelf that's incidental. So we have phone chargers, we have condoms, makeup wipes, all the way to smart waters in the cooler.
It's really interesting because it really expands vending machines. It's kind of like when people think of like franchising, like fast franchising, they only think of fast food places. And I feel like vending machines maybe sometimes only think of like Coca-Cola, but vending machines go way beyond just your Coca-Cola.
Absolutely. I mean, anything you want, people are going to pay for convenience.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about strategies you have used to secure vending machine placements. Anything specific that you have used to get these placements in like apartments or offices?
Yeah, so there's a couple strategies we use. We have full-time cold callers on our team. We have email SDRs on our team, and then we do a ton of pop-ins. So for me, I'm super bullish on like face-to-face because it's, usually the competition is lazy and will hide behind an email address.
Yeah.
And if you put yourself in a property manager's shoes, whether it's literally an office building or an apartment, they're putting out fires all day. So they're not just checking their email. So I love doing just kind of swing bys and just checking in and being kind of the front of their brain and saying hello, dropping off 4-pack of crumble cookies or something just to kind of keep the ball moving down the field a little bit.
So you guys have full-time cold callers, SDRs. I absolutely love that strategy. I know you said competition behind the computer, but I still believe cold calling is not dead. Cold emailing is not dead if you do it in the right way. So how is your team sourcing locations or finding people? You don't have to give away all the secrets here, but how are you guys finding people to like actually call?
We have a couple data sources we use, and we have some criteria around some like foot traffic algorithms. I mean, we have, I don't even know how many, probably 900 properties now we found off market.
Wow.
Because where we're going is we want to build the Zillow's estimate for, vending revenue. Like, what's this type of property going to bring? So, yeah, we have some data sources that we will pull. And then, we just kind of pick up the phone and start dialing away.
Interesting. So are you just saying like, hey, this is Mike. I'm calling if you guys have any vending machines. What's like the amount of time that people say, yes, no, interested?
Yeah, a lot of times you'll find the baby boomer machine that's broken, or, oh yeah, we have a Coke machine, but it takes cash only, or, oh yeah, we're hitched to Pepsi's wagon with the bottling service here, and we actually want to add some Coke products like Monster. And so there's kind of objection handling. There's 100 ways you can go with it, kind of back to the incidentals example was the one property group we got with that micro market. That micro market did $18,000 in August.
Wow.
And we sold 589 smart waters, but we also sold a ton of makeup wipes and paper towels and laundry pods. So for us, we were going in there like, hey, we can actually be a full-on market for you. And this property is up in the Northwest in a very high visibility city. And they didn't want their residents going across to Whole Foods at 10 p.m. when there's homeless outside. Like, that's just not what they wanted to do. So for us, it was kind of a simple value prop.
Yeah, I want to emphasize that to the audience. 18,000 with one mini market. That is insane numbers. Can you talk to us specifically about like the margins on that vending machine, the mini markets?
With that one, we're about 50% all in profits. With that one market, we pretty much normally do around 3x on our COGS. So we try to aim for 67 to 73%. Like the smart waters are a little bit different because, we can get those for $1 or a little bit less and get away in this market with selling them for $4. So Those are on the higher end. And then food is a little bit lower, around 2 to 3x. So yeah, we're profiting about 50% on that one.
That is insane. With this one specifically, because I know with your very first one, you had like a full playbook on how to like price everything. Are you still using something similar to that, or how are you deciding on how to price these products then? Is it based all on margins or following best practices? Yeah.
Yeah. So this one we were talking about with the 18 grand in August, we actually priced our smart waters at 350. This ownership group has multiple properties in LA, the Northwest, Chicago, Canada. So we negotiated a revenue share for their whole portfolio of properties and gave their owners dashboard access to the sales reports. So they had kind of some skin in the game to help market the markets. And so it's funny because we actually got an email within the first 2 weeks that were like, hey, will you raise your prices? Which usually it's the opposite. It's like, we got residents complaining that you're charging too much. So we actually bumped our prices up a little bit, which has only helped our margins, obviously.
How are you then like refilling these vending machines? Can you talk to us about the logistics that happen there to actually make sure these are fully and properly stocked?
There's kind of two trains of thoughts with this. And I'm kind of on the, how do I make this as systemized as possible? Because I want things to be passive and my time's worth more than stocking Doritos. So
yeah,
I kind of clearly self-taught myself, you can't delegate something unless you know what you're delegating. So I stocked our machines probably for the first 6 months by myself. And then I posted an ad under Craigslist gigs, which was their gig section is brilliant because it's all the DoorDashes, the Ubers. So in a college town, it's like you can stock these machines if you're an early riser, if you're a night owl, if it's Sunday or Wednesday, I don't care. It just needs to be done once or twice a week, depending on sales volume. And so I hired someone at $20 an hour and I just put in there, hey, if you do a good job, I'll raise it up to $25 an hour after 3 months. And then long term, I might give you a 5% profit share. And that's just worked ever since. So now that person came on full time. We just hired our third person this week for that route. So we just kind of really build the systems and let it kind of run itself.
I want to kind of dive into that though. So you have like 3 people that are working on like logistics and everything, but you have 900 different locations. How many like markets are you in? And like, how does that like math essentially? I want to dive deeper into that.
So I'm talking about our Eugene route here. So our route here is probably 25 locations. Usually one staffer can take on about 15 to 20 if they're really efficient. You know, usually 10 locations a day. If you have good locations, you usually have to go by twice a week. And then you might have a day in the middle of the week, like Wednesday as a floater, just in case something comes up. But yeah, you usually try to scale that. And a lot of people, you know, they'll get 1 or 2 locations doing, let's just say $2,000 a month. And so you got, or even less, let's be conservative, say 1,500 a month. So you got 2 locations doing $3,000, you know, they're profiting $1,500 minimum. And if they're doing it themselves, they're probably spending 3 hours a week. I mean, you factor in, that's 12 hours a month. That's a pretty solid return.
For sure. What are some other like costs that comes with like the vending machine business? I feel like we've talked about a few, like stocking, obviously you have payroll, you're using technology, you have SCRs. What are some other typical costs that you're seeing within the vending machine space? Just so people can kind of understand, it may be a smaller upfront cost, but there are costs actually running this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's all kinds of things that definitely add up. So you got like insurance. So normally machines insurance cost is about 15 to $20. And then it kind of plateaus at $100 for your route. That's per month. What else you got? You got like transaction fees. So a lot of these micro markets and kind of smart coolers are credit card only. So you got the merchant service fees. You got the software fees from that machine company because they're trying to like get you for, oh, we're going to take 5% of revenue because we're providing software updates and the whole like SaaS model of that. So, you know, you got another 10% there. So if you think about a 50% margin, you got about 30% for COGS, 10% for those kind of transaction fees and software fees. And then, you know, another 10% for the ancillary. You might hire a part-time stalker or the insurance fees or what have you.
That's super interesting. I didn't even think about the insurance cost, but I mean, that's like a no-brainer. Of course, you guys have to be insured there. I want to pivot to then also asking about how are you finding these like vending machines and what are the benefits of buying like a new vending machine versus like a used vending machine?
Yeah, this is a loaded question. So
Yeah.
we'll just kind of go through what happened with me. So my first location, I was like, oh, I'm going to save a couple $1,000s. Or no, it was actually my second location. I was like, I'm going to save a couple $1,000s and buy a machine off Craigslist.
There you go.
So it was a refurbished machine from a manufacturer that gets these old machines and refurbishes them, whatever. And so I kind of trusted them at the time. And sure enough, that machine broke after 6 months. And I realized real quick, being Mr. Passive, I was like, yeah, no thanks. So ever since then, I've never gotten a used machine again. There's definitely some people that I know very well that thrive on getting great deals on Marketplace and Craigslist. And, they have 10 machines torn apart in their garage and they've just turned into like machine mechanics basically, but they're getting them for $500 and they probably got mine for a screaming deal too. But now I get new machines that are under warranty, and if something's broke, I just call them. They either send out a rep or our team has to FaceTime them when we're at the machine to troubleshoot it, and then they overnight the part that's needed.
Yeah, interesting. I want to hit on that troubleshooting piece as well. Like, how do you maintain and troubleshoot these? It sounds like you're doing it like remotely, because obviously these things are going to break down. So how are you maintaining it? And can you also quickly answer how long these machines typically last?
Yeah, so machines are built to last. Where it gets a little iffy is you go to a Jiffy Lube, you see that machine that's sitting over in the corner that the mechanics use to get their 75-cent soda, and that thing's probably been in there 30 years. That thing is built to last. Now, these new machines with the AI cameras and doing all the AI software tracking of what you grab out of the micro market and things like that, that's going to be interesting to see because it is such an interesting and disrupting market right now. There's companies coming out every single week, it feels like, that are hitting me up about, hey, check out this new AI camera and system that you can, at the end of the day, you're just plugging them into smart fridges and throwing a point of sale device on the door, So I'll be really curious to see kind of what that looks like with longevity. But as far as I'm concerned, like the commercial fridges and stuff, we have typically maybe a 5-year warranty on most parts. And then, I think for us, you can factor in that depreciation costs into your budget as well.
I think that is super interesting. What does like an AI vending machine cost that has like all the fancy features?
Yeah, it's around $5,000 to $6,000. So it's not bad.
I was going to say, when I hear like AI vending machines, I'm thinking of like $20,000. And it sounds like this is where the market's kind of going, is like these AI vending machines that companies want. Maybe even like a city like Austin, they're probably more bullish on those than other cities as well.
Well, and it's all about the user experience. So back to the self-checkout thing, like you don't want to have to enter in a code into a machine for every single item you're trying to, like with these AI machines, you put your phone on the door, it unlocks, or Apple Pay or credit card on the door, it unlocks once it's verified. Whatever you grab out of that machine, you're not even scanning any of the products or barcodes. You walk away and that card gets charged based on what you grab. So you want to talk about less friction rather than like, I got to enter in B17 for a Dr. Pepper and then B19 for a Snickers and B34 for a bag of gummy bears. Ryan, we started with the old school motor machines and locations, and we swapped them out with these smart machines, and our transaction values have 3x. Like we have literally tripled revenue, and that's the exact same location, just a different type of machine. Because now you got people that are coming,
Crazy.
Oh, I opened the cooler, I'm going to grab a bag of chips. I'm going to grab laundry pods, which I couldn't put it in the vending machine anyway initially. So like, it's just wild. It went from average transaction being $7 to $21. Well, that's 3xing your revenue just by a modern machine.
It's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. And everyone, we're going to dive into the marketing side of this real quick. Before we do that, Mike, I want to have you speak directly to the audience here. If someone wanted to start a vending machine business in 30 days, what are like 1 or 2 steps you'd give them right out of the gate before we move to marketing?
First thing would be go find a place with high foot traffic that has a big parking lot and just go in, ask for the manager and give them the sales pitch that you're going to provide some type of modern machine that's not going to be the old school machine they're going to think of when they hear the V word.
I like it. Let's switch to that marketing piece because I know the audience absolutely loves marketing sales. They love just digging this all up. So what strategies have worked well for you when it comes to marketing?
For us, we try to create incentives for warm intros. So whether that's, hey, we'll add a second machine at your location if you intro us to your 3 sister properties, whether that's, hey, we'll double your revenue share if you intro us to your 5, sister properties. So we're big into a warm intro is a lot better than 10 cold intros. And then we also like tap into network. So it's kind of like when you go to LinkedIn and you type in the search tab and it's like, oh, I'm second degree connection from Ryan Atkinson because we both know someone from Iowa. Well, it's like leverage those second degree connections to actually get to that person. And so we do a lot of that type of like second, third degree connections to get to properties we think are going to be high revenue generating.
It sounds like there's a really good opportunity. Once you get into one location, there's a really good opportunity to expand into all like the sister locations.
Oh, it's getting the first one is how you break the dam. That's always kind of the hardest part is getting that first fish in the boat. But once you get the first one in, it's like, okay, now you got the credibility, you got the referral, you got all the kind of the things to scale it.
That's really interesting. Are there any levers you're pulling? Like, how do you negotiate with like these locations on revenue sharing or other incentives to secure those first locations?
Yeah, there's definitely levers. I don't like to use revenue share as a lever because at the end of the day, what we pay them is never going to be enough to, let's say it's a commercial office building. Like we're never going to cover the open space they couldn't fill in a upstairs tenant vacancy. But for us, it's all about the amenity that they don't have. So for them, whether that's, hey, we'll give you a $5 credit. So every business you tour this office building, you can take them by the market and get a free salad and drink as part of their tour, like the whole kind of athletics recruiting pitch. Like, yeah, that we want them to bring their 35 employees into your office anyway to drive more foot traffic. So of course, we're going to give you a credit to bring them by the market and get whatever they want.
Interesting. I want to go back a little bit to that marketing piece as well. We talked about cold calling earlier. And are you guys are running email marketing campaigns, I presume? Like, what's kind of that SDR strategy that you guys have? I'm assuming cold calling, emailing the same people. Can you talk a little bit specifically about that?
We do have a kind of an email SDR campaign for what we offer. A lot of it will start out with like, an intro. It's usually an 8 email sequence ranging all the way through from intro to a free site visit to come see what you currently have to maybe we'll drop in like different machine examples into different kind of scripts. And then, we might pull out the revenue share card if they're still unresponsive.
It's really cool because like when I got on this podcast, honestly, I was like, okay, like this is probably like a solo operation, but this is like a full-fledged team with payroll, with expenses, with like everything. Like this vending machine business is like a very legit thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a business for sure. It's been, we're learning how to fly this thing as it goes down the runway.
Yeah, absolutely. But that is to say someone could run a much smaller operation on the side. Would you advise that?
Absolutely. I think it's such a great side hustle because at the end of the day, think about it. If you're like, I got into this when I found out my wife was pregnant. And so what's kind of the trigger in your life? Is it your kids are about to go to college and tuition is expensive? Is it paying for daycare? Is it you want to join your country club? Like all those different expenses, 1 or 2 machines can take that expense right out of your worry bucket. And it's taken 1 or 2 hours a week. Like I would go stock the machines. I literally would look at my phone and be like, okay, I need 8 Snickers, 10 Diet Cokes. I'd throw them into a bucket. And I'd go stalk on my way to hit balls or on my way to the gym. Like I wasn't doing this as my full-time job. I was still like a tech executive out of Menlo Park at the time. So I think it's a perfect side hustle. It's literally supply and demand of you buy a product after it sells and you resell it for 3x what you bought it for.
It's simple economics like that.
Yeah. Like seriously, we literally have friends in our group that will give each one of their kids a vending machine and say, you pick the product. Like we're talking teenage kids. You pick the product, you set the prices. Like they're living a economics 101 class as a 14-year-old competing against their siblings. Like how could you not think of a simpler way to teach someone supply and demand than a vending machine?
Yeah, Mike, I always leave fired up from like UpFlip conversations, but like I'm going to be leaving this one like extra fired up. I'm going to be looking at vending machines like way different because of this conversation.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for that because we are going to move to our fan blitz questions. And these are our last 5 questions. It's submitted from our community. And guys, if you want to join in on amazing entrepreneurs like Mike, go to www.youtube.com/upflip and submit your questions there. But Mike, ready for our last 5 questions?
Let's rip it.
Number 1, how hard is it to repair machines? Can I do this on my lunch break?
it's not hard at all if you get a new machine because they're typically under warranty.
There you go. Number 2, what's something you wish you knew before you started?
It's not get rich quick.
How long did it take for you to like move to vending machines full time? I should ask that.
I don't even know, probably 3 years, but that was never the goal. Like I wasn't hating my W-2 and trying to go full time in this right away. It was more of I want to kind of test this out at a low investment, kind of low capital and see where it goes from there. But I think some people think of it as like Amazon e-commerce where it's like, oh, we got to get ready for Q4. And it's like, no, it's a numbers game. You do 10 pop-ins, you get 3 proposals out there and you're going to get 2 that sign it. It's like simple math.
That is simple math. Number 3, how do you stand out from your competitors?
We're always pushing innovation. So whether that's the type of machines, whether that's the type of products, we're not going to compete on revenue share of Snickers and Diet Cokes. Like right now, I'm having meetings with all these manufacturers of homemade meals and things that, we want to kind of put in the machines for the convenience factor. And even back to, in the airport, last week I was flying through Denver and I was looking at the Bose machine there and what are they charging for Bose? And like they had a over-the-counter drug machine in Denver that I thought was really interesting and definitely relevant here in Eugene. So just kind of always look at what are those other niche items we can be adding.
I like it. Number 4, what are you most proud about in your business?
That I can do with my kids. I think it's such a simple concept. Like my daughter and we go to Costco every Saturday and she loves it. She's over there like counting what we have for supply and inventory and she gets a smoothie at the end of it when we check out. So it's kind of created like a daddy-daughter date to go get our vending product.
That's awesome. And hopefully a $1.50 hot dog as well.
Exactly. She's not big enough though. She's only 3. So I'm like, that hot dog's bigger than your head.
Yeah. But you can't beat that deal. Last question for you. Do most vending machine businesses have websites or are they more old school?
Nowadays, they definitely have websites. Yeah. If you go down to Google and just type in vending machines or micro markets, you're going to have a whole hour of a rabbit hole that you're going to go down and get fascinated with.
I absolutely love it. Well, if someone wants to check out your website and connect with you, Mike, where can people learn more about what you're doing and what you're building?
Yeah, probably simplest place is mrpassive.com. I'm most active on Instagram, I would say. So Mike D. Hoffmann _ is my handle, or you can find me as Mr. Passive on Twitter. But I love to share kind of everything because that's just the coach in me is build once and share it to everyone. So I don't hide anything and like to share everything as we build it.
Guys, that was an amazing episode with Michael. 3 quick takeaways for you. Number 1, when you're evaluating where to put your vending machine, number 1, of course, look at the foot traffic. Look at places like apartment complexes, office buildings, places that have a lot of foot traffic and full parking lots. I love that point that Michael hit on. Number 2, a great strategy to get people in this industry is cold calling. Cold calling is not dead. Email marketing is not dead. So be making those calls, emailing those people, and getting your foot in the door to open up those opportunities. Number 3, you could run this as a side hustle, but you could also run this as a full-time business. It's amazing what Michael has built with full-fledged payroll, systems, logistics. Everything is so cool. But you could just run this as a simple side hustle with 1 or 2 machines, which I think is amazing. If you love this episode, don't forget to leave us a review. Your reviews help us reach more aspiring entrepreneurs just like you. Our goal is simple, to inspire and equip you on your entrepreneurial journey. Thanks everyone for listening. Well, thank you so much for sharing all the insights today. Generally, I'm leaving this conversation with a new perspective on vending machines. So that's when you have a great interview. Mike, thank you so much for being here today.
Ryan, thanks for having me. This was awesome.